You were going to mention Bud Elliott and his playoff predictions.
Yes, so he had, and I'm gonna pull him up here on Twitter as well. But he had Boise State as one of the teams getting a bye. Now,
which
all that means is that they are one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions. That's all.
Which means he has them ahead of the Big 12 champion.
He has them ahead of Big 12 champion, which right now looks like is Iowa State, who he has all the way down the 11th seed. Now,
so he's basically projecting Boise to win out.
Boise to win out and the Big 12 to cannibalize itself is what he's projecting, which might actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know if so there are 2 ways that I think about this, and this is very late night college football analysis here. I could see the college football playoff committee saying, "Oh, you know what we don't want? Boise State hosting one of these playoff games in 35,000 seat Albertson Stadium in Boise, Idaho in December outside. Yeah, we don't want that matchup." So maybe they would slide them all the way to the 4th seed so that they don't have a home game, so that they can play that game.
No, I would think it would almost go the other way, because that's such a great venue in college football to showcase. It would be awesome.
But we're college football fans, and we think that they aren't. They're big suits. And
here's what they could do to get out of that, Sam. They just
rank them like
9th. Yeah. They put them at 9.
If with the way this season is going, if they went out, I think Boise State might just stumble their way to number 6 in the country. If they keep winning out and Genty is putting up these numbers, because if teams lose above them, they're just going to slot one ahead, and they're going to keep going.
I don't think that Boise is this unstoppable force.
They aren't.
They're good. They're a good team, but I don't think they're going to win out. I really don't.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't personally, I don't see a team on there that can stop them.
UNLV or Oregon State can beat them.
They can. And they got to play UNLV twice, and they got to play them. I believe the Mountain West still plays at the 1 seed's home stadium.
I was going to do this later, but let's do it now because I have a G5 rundown here. JMU lost to ULM 21-19. Navy smacked Air Force 34-7. I know Air Force isn't good. I still thought that was a very solid win. Army crushed Tulsa 49-7, and Tulane dropped 70 on UAB. And so with all that in mind and the stuff we've already said about Boise and UNLV, who is the best G5 team after Boise State?
So
do you want some candidates?
I think right now it has to be one of the service academies.
I think it's Navy.
Navy has the best win.
They beat
against Memphis, right? So I got to give Navy over Memphis. I mean, this is don't tell the other people in the Norfolk, Newport News, Virginia Beach area, but this is a go Army beat Navy household. So I'm going to predict Army to win that game. I think Army's defense is better. I don't know, dude. It's got to be Navy. It's not UNLV. It's not UNLV, I don't think. And
I think it could be Tulane.
It could be Tulane, but
they're 2 losses. Look at their 2 losses.
I don't know if they're in the playoff hunt though at this point.
Well,
because of those 2 losses.
Exactly. Their losses are to Oklahoma and Kansas State.
No, that's very true. No, they're playing really well. John Summerall he's got a little bit of ruthless coach in him. He and Kirk Cignetti are kind of out for blood. I will also say though, UAB, excuse me, their players have quit. They are not interested in playing football. I took Army minus 25 today.
Dilfer's a weird too.
It is great golfer, not a good football coach.
So so for me, it's Navy or it's Tulane in my head. I think that
makes sense to me.
Right after that, it's
Army's played nobody.
ULM. I think ULM's pretty darn good.
What a stupid correct answer that you just had right there.
I know. They beat JMU, who hung 70 on UNC. Is that booty?
Well, okay. So back it up with JMU. Booty is the quarterback for ULM. JMU beat Gardner Webb by 2.
Yeah.
And lost to Louisiana Monroe. if you were to tell me that would happen at the beginning of the year, I would have felt a lot better about betting JMU under 8 wins. But
And you have to throw Liberty in there if we're going to do
yeah,
that.
I think Liberty is the team that a lot of people are forgetting about. I don't know what they'll do with that finding a 12th game. They just like Liberty doesn't have a chance to prove themselves against a team that is even remotely in the top 100.
Sam Houston.
Sam Houston is playing good. I'll tell you,
They're
playing
5-1.
They are playing good. I would still say Texas State has talent-wise. I think Texas State is probably up there.
I think so too. They just like Tulane. They have the 2 losses already, so it's gonna hurt their chances.
And Arizona State looks really good. We'll talk about them later. And that Sam Houston loss they had by a bunch. North Texas, yeah, man. It's for me. I think though, if you're looking at playoffs, it's Boise State, UNLV. It's the 2 service academies, Memphis, Tulane, and I think after that, you're going to have to take some real leaps to get there.
So here's Sam's playoff picks as of 10-7. You can see he's jammed up that SEC slot.
I mean, and here's the reason for that is it's not because I'm this SEC homer, but I don't know who else you put in from the other conferences at this point. And I mean, Alabama and Georgia, I think, are a given. I understand Alabama lost that game, but they're a given. Texas, given. Ole Miss and Texas A&M, I think, are the teams that are sneaky 10-2. I think A&M can get in with 9-3, looking at their schedule. Ole Miss probably has to win 10. But again, with that schedule, they have one of the more favorable SEC schedules, and they have a lot of opportunities for really good wins against teams like LSU. So Ole Miss and A&M I have in there with the 3 obvious ones from the SEC.
So you dropped Tennessee
and
you dropped Mizzou, which is natural.
Okay. Mizzou, natural. Tennessee, I just don't see them beating. Tennessee would have to show me something that they haven't shown yet.
From the Big Ten, Sam has Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State still. From the ACC has Clemson and Miami. From the Big 12, you are high on Iowa State, winning that.
Sticking with Iowa State. They keep rolling.
Boise as the G5. We just got a message from Thomas Train saying Army instead of Boise.
I would love that.
Could happen.
I would love that. I'm all for it.
But
I think even if Army goes undefeated, I don't know if does that Navy game even count? I don't think that the second Navy game would even count if both of those teams go undefeated, because I think the playoff would be decided by then.
I think they would hold it out. I think I don't know. I really don't know, but
I don't know.
What this comes down to is how many teams is the SEC getting in? Are they getting 4 or are they getting 5? And a lot of that depends, Sam, on my pick, Notre Dame.
Yep.
I have Notre Dame this is the first time I've put them in a prediction. Maybe my conversation about the Roback shirt was a little bit, foreshadowing, but I have had 4 SEC teams in, I think last time because I had USC in. Before that, I had 5 like you, but I'm leaving Alabama in there. Bud Elliott, noticeably on he not only did he have Boise as the 4 seed, he had Alabama out of his playoffs. I don't know if you noticed that. Tennessee, I still have in. And the reason being, they get Bama at home and Georgia on the road. Those are their 2 toughest games. I think they can win one of those games. And if they win one, they're 10-2 with a win in Norman and a win over one of those 2 teams.
Can I ask you a quick hypothetical?
Sure.
9-3 Tennessee or 10-2 Penn State?
It depends on where the wins are with Tennessee, but they're going to have to go. You said 9-3?
9-3 Tennessee.
If Tennessee does not, if they don't beat Bama or Georgia, then I'd put Penn State in.
All right.
Because
I think Notre Dame is the wild card in all of this. And I think to be honest, Notre Dame made this playoff the way they did so that they could be the wild card team to screw everything up.
Right, because it's taking a slot from the Big Ten or the SEC more than likely. Now, it may end up taking the ACC slot too, because I still have Clemson and Miami both making it. My Big 12 champ is BYU, and I put them in last time. I'm sticking with it. I don't feel good about any of the potential picks, but I think I like Kansas State the most, and BYU beat them.
Yep.
And so what I'm kind of basing my Big 12 thought process on now, Sam, is like, who has the best shot of getting to the Big 12 championship game? And BYU has one of the better shots of just about anybody of getting there. And so if they can get there, they could potentially win.
It does feel like the Big 12 is all up to, is Cam Rising healthy or not? If Cam Rising is healthy, it's Utah. If he's not, it is a free-for-all.
Now, let me switch back to yours real quick, because you do have A&M in there, and you'll notice I have Notre Dame in there. Notre Dame has the head-to-head. So if it comes down to we're fighting for the last spot, they're not going to put in Texas A&M over Notre Dame if the losses are even. I don't think.
It depends on how bad they think that NIU loss is. And it doesn't look like that NIU loss is going to get better. Like, I think
Notre Dame has been beating the crap out of everybody else. And and at the end of the year, Notre Dame can make a statement because they're going to play at USC. And if I'm obviously projecting right now to be a Notre Dame win. Last week, I was projecting it to be a loss. I have changed my tune based on what happened on the field. But one of USC or Notre Dame, if they win out, one of them is going to be in this playoff. And like,
this is crazy, dude.
And the SEC scenarios are preposterous. Like they really are ridiculous, because if you look at who has the toughest schedule, you have Ole Miss in your playoff. Ole Miss has to go to LSU. They have Oklahoma at home. They have to go to Arkansas, which we know can beat anybody, and they have to play Georgia. And so Ole Miss has a tough ass run, and it starts this weekend. So I left them off, even though they probably have just as good a chance as any of these other teams. But if you look at the future schedules, like A&M has one of the easiest schedules, but however good they are will prop Notre Dame up.
That's fair. That's a really good point too about Notre Dame. I'm a little bit worried for Notre Dame's sake that if USC drops another here, they could have only one good win, whereas even 9-3 Texas A&M or 10-2 Texas A&M would have multiple really good wins. And I don't know how, like, head-to-head does mean something, and it definitely should mean something, but the fact that that was a week 1 game, and the fact that, like, the resume is what they're going to look at, the blind resume, I think, more than the head-to-head. If they treat this like they would the March Madness. But dude, I know
what you're saying. And you know what's a very interesting thought? If you look at all the teams in the SEC, we're talking about A&M, LSU. No, we're not even talking about LSU. Forget LSU.
LSU is still in this thing.
They're in this thing, but neither of us have them in the playoff. We haven't really conversed about them, and I'm kind of leaving them out of this conversation. But Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M. Those are the 6 teams that we're playing with to potentially get in here. And at the end of the season, Georgia, they'll have played at Texas. They'll have played at Ole Miss. They'll have played Tennessee. They already have a loss to Bama, which means Bama has a head-to-head against Georgia. So, like, that's going to prop Alabama up. So what I'm thinking is, at the end of the year, Sam, we could have a conversation. Is it Georgia or A&M getting in? And
I don't.
And A&M has the Mizzou win. Georgia has the Clemson win. And they're both very similar wins if you think about it. Like, they're dominating wins against teams that are, I think Clemson's a little bit better than Mizzou, but like not too much different there. And so there's a chance. I know Georgia seems like this like mythical beast, and they're Georgia, so they're going to get in, but like they could lose to Texas, they could lose to Ole Miss, and they could lose to Tennessee. And they've already got a loss.
I also wonder here, with Clemson's strength of schedule, is starting to not look great. App State is not a good team. NC State is not a good team. Hold on, I'm trying to read it. I was telling all the Miami fans Vandy was way more physical than you guys. Nobody believed me. Told you guys Vandy was/is no pushover.
It's true. They are not.
It is true. They're not a pushover. Like, we're giving the ACC 2 teams in because of how dominant those 2 teams have been, and the brands I think are big enough.
Brands, and they're going to win a lot of games because the conference isn't very good.
I could see them screwing over the ACC here.
I could see it. Yeah, for sure.
For a like, if Notre Dame is in the picture, I understand what you're saying with Notre Dame takes a spot from the SEC because of that win over Texas A&M, because the SEC would already have 4 teams in there. I would not be surprised though if when it comes down to a decision, they put in A&M and Notre Dame both, or they put in Ole Miss or whoever, and take away the loser of the ACC title game. I would not be surprised because they're just, if you look at Miami and Clemson schedules, like neither of those teams are going to have an elite win.
Yeah, well, you know who's not going to have an elite win unless they do some serious work here is Ole Miss, because they don't have one. Everyone on this list so far, Alabama has beaten Georgia, Tennessee has beaten Oklahoma, Georgia has beaten Clemson, and Texas has beaten Michigan. Ole Miss has nothing right now. So they have work to do. And they're not the brand that these other schools are.
That's
so if
true.
anyone's getting left out, Ole Miss is probably going to get left out at the end of this. And I think Miami and Clemson, if they are 1 or 2 losses each, they're going to have a very good shot at getting in. Now that's a different. I want to have the Penn State conversation real quick because Penn State's number 4 in the country according to the AP poll. I have not been impressed by Penn State at all. They sleptwalked through the beginning of the UCLA game. And you're talking about a UCLA team that's coming from the West Coast playing at noon, and you sleptwalk through the first quarter. Like, I don't know how good Penn State is. They're about to fly to the West Coast and probably catch a loss to USC. At least that's what I think is going to happen. And then I'm serious, man. I don't know if the Big Ten should get more than 2 teams in this. And we're going to see the top 2 teams go at it this weekend in Ohio State and Oregon. So one of them's catching a loss too.
We're not talking about the team that would throw the biggest wrench into all of this because there's only going to be one G5 team, right? We've kind of figured that out by now. There's a team who only plays one of the top 3 teams in their conference, and they only have 2 road games remaining, and they are currently 6-0. That's the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana plays Nebraska. Indiana has a bye week, and then they host Nebraska. Then they host Washington, at Michigan State, host Michigan, at Ohio State, Purdue.
Look,
it is very, very, very likely
they're playing
Indiana
well.
finds their way to Indianapolis for the Big Ten.
They're playing well right now. They are. And Kirk Cignetti, like he can keep talking his crap as long as they keep winning. But I remember last year when Kirk Cignetti had game day and an undefeated JMU team, and he lost to a mediocre App State team. So let me tell you something. Indiana's going to screw something up. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't be 10-2. And if they are 10-2 in the Big Ten, I think this is where you're going to have to look at schedules. This isn't just oh, they're in the Big Ten and they're 10-2. Ole Miss, they're in the SEC and they're 10-2. You have to end up beating someone good at some point. But to me, if Indiana makes the playoff because they're 10-2 or 11-1 or whatever, they're taking a spot from Penn State. They're not.
Oh yeah.
They're not going to give Indiana a 4th spot because Penn State, like, yes, they have their whole season in front of them. They're undefeated. I just, what are they? Like, I like, they're good. They're going to lose to Ohio State in a couple weeks. They're probably going to lose to USC. And if they don't, then I'll eat crow. And hey, I have them in my playoff because their schedule's favorable and they have a very good shot at going 10-2, but I could easily see them losing more games.
Yeah. I'm just saying, dude, like I don't know if they leave out a double-digit win team from the SEC or Big Ten.
Yeah, no, they
no that other comment might make sense because Arkansas, as they were a team that's like mid-season firing their coach was the talk of the town. Like Sam Pittman probably saved his job with that win. And that Vandy offense, dude, is if they are making there's not a lot you can do if they're making the right reads.
The comment
there's
says,
really not.
I was more surprised that Tennessee lost to Arkansas than Bama to Vandy because he was at the NC State Tennessee game and Tennessee looked very, very dominant. But I think the difference with Tennessee is that they don't have an elite quarterback. They just don't. And
not yet.
Who at this point, like, who does? Like, Quinn Ewers is banged up. Carson Beck may be elite, but really struggled for the first half against Bama. Nico, just mentioned him. And Milroe is probably your best answer, but they just lost to Vanderbilt because their defense isn't very good. So it's I don't know. And we're not even talking about Pitt, who's undefeated, and that's what Thomas Crane just said. How many games does Pitt win?
8 or 9.
Yeah, I think I think nine's probably the right answer, because I didn't expect them to be 5-0, but now here they are.
It was a big comeback. I mean, they've beaten an FCS team in Youngstown State, a terrible team in Kent State. Came back down double digits against Cincinnati and West Virginia. 10-point win at North Carolina, and that's a team that's probably going to clean house at the end of this year as well.
Right. Salty Pat has a QB, is what Thomas also says, and that's true. But like, they're very lucky to be 5-0.
Yeah,
and they haven't played. They've beaten a bunch of power teams, but they're not good power teams, and they're probably going to catch at least 3 losses. At least 3.
They could lose the next 3 games. Cal, Syracuse, at SMU. They could lose all 3 of those games.
They could. They got the Calgorithm.
Virginia, like, that's a game that Virginia wins. Virginia always has these like one upset win a year in the ACC. Like, Virginia could win that game. Then they have Clemson, Louisville, and at Boston College.
Yeah, so I feel okay.
Well,
after watching this past weekend, I did not want to make these playoff picks, because this is a challenge. I don't feel good about having Penn State in there. I don't necessarily feel good about having Notre Dame in there. I put a team in there that lost to NIU. I got a team in there that just lost to Vanderbilt. I got a team that sleptwalked against UCLA, of all teams. So it's just like, I don't know what's going on right now. We're doing the best we can, but as of 10-7, this is what we got.
12 teams have to make it in, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So somebody in that 12 team pool is going to have had 1, probably 2 really bad weekends.